Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is having a good day. I know it's been a while. I've been busy behind the scenes. I've got an update for the Illinois court case because it was yesterday. And I'm going to put a link down below to the latest documents for that. And thank you so much, sweetie, for getting these documents so quickly, especially when you're trying to do your real job. So we appreciate it very much. Now, first of all, I want to apologize. I was mispronouncing the word used in these documents. It's limine, not limine or limine, whatever I was saying, but it's limine. But I went to the American Bar Association to get a definition of what these limines were, and especially in civil litigation. And it's basically to avoid some inevitable results. Practitioners must understand what this motion is and what it is not. The term in limine, or on the threshold, misleadingly suggests that any motion filed shortly before the start of a trial is a motion in limine. Stated in the most general terms, a proper motion in limine is an evidentiary motion that seeks a determination as to whether to exclude or admit evidence before it is offered at trial. So that's what these limines are, and it looks like some more have been filed. So I am going to go through some of these. Now, in this one document, of course, we know that Pekeva is saying that this was a clergy penitent privilege, and Watchtower has been claiming that for years. And there's so much evidence that we have come up with in their own literature that they do not have a clergy class. Now, it's interesting because on their website, jw.org, it says we do not have a paid clergy class. Well, it doesn't matter whether they're paid or not. Watchtower for years has been saying they do not have a clergy laity distinction. So while they're telling Jehovah's Witness members that they do not have a clergy class, but yet in the court they're saying they do. Now, I just happen to have the 1994 Watchtower Bond volume here. And this is the February 15th, 1994. And it's the article on page 5, Are Jehovah's Witnesses a Cult? And it goes through all the, evidence of why they're not a cult, okay? But here on page 7, I want to read something. Who is their leader? It is precisely because of this close adherence to Bible teachings that the veneration and idolization of human leaders, so characteristic of cults today, is not to be found among Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, when you go to several other articles from the 80s and 90s, they are bashing other religions for having a clergy. They even go as far as to call them the apostate clergy class. Going on with paragraph 1 here. They reject the concept of a clergy laity distinction. The Encyclopedia of Religion aptly states about Jehovah's Witnesses, a clergy class and distinctive titles are prohibited. They follow Jesus Christ as their leader and head of the Christian congregation. It was Jesus who said, "Do not you be called rabbi, for one is your teacher, whereas all you are brothers. Moreover, do not call anyone your father on earth, for one is your Father, the heavenly one. Neither be called leaders, for your leader is one, the Christ." So then, they go on to say, it is clear that Jehovah's Witnesses are as far from being a cult as Jesus was from being a glutton and a drunkard. So why are the rank and file members being told that they do not have a clergy laity? But yet they're told, be careful, false stories and lies. Don't go read these court cases because these are apostate-driven lies. But if Jehovah's Witnesses read these court documents, they would see that Watchtower is claiming they do have a clergy penitent privilege on these documents. And on this one document dated March 24th, 2021, it's defendant's motion in limine number 3, 4, and 5. And I am here on page 2. And it says they're going to exclude what was discussed at these judicial meetings between the perpetrator and the elders because of the clergy penitent privilege. This is what is so upsetting, because we as Jehovah's Witnesses knew, we don't have a clergy class. And they may say we don't have a paid clergy class. Well, it doesn't matter. It's still a clergy class. And as you can see, in this, they're trying to use it. We're not a cult because we don't have this clergy penitent privilege, this clergy laity class. Well, because we can prove with court documents now that Watchtower is claiming a clergy class when it comes to the clergy penitent privilege, then does that make them a cult now? This makes this article from 1994 null and void, right? I'm just saying, it just makes sense that, you cannot claim you have a clergy class when you go to court and then say in this article that you're not a cult because you don't have a clergy class. Can't have your cake and eat it too, Watchtower. Now, in this motion, status of subpoena, Pencave's attorney is saying that he will appear before the Honorable Judge Gerhardt or any judge sitting in his stead in the courtroom usually occupied by him in the county courthouse. Looks like April 23rd. So that. And then another one, on their order on request for the extended media coverage, it looks like the judge is allowing one photographer in the courtroom, and still photography is the only thing that is going to be approved. And then there is this subpoena, the custodian of records. You are directed to produce the designated documents, objects, or tangible things, any and all instructional material sent to Kingdom Hall or defendants from either Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses or any other governing body over Kingdom Hall, Crystal Lake regarding procedures, processing, steps, or handling of child abuse or sex abuse reports made to the elders. A copy of the January 1st, 1997 Watchtower. And that's a good one too. Identities of any and all persons that either defendant spoke with in the handling of the Hernandez report of child/sex abuse. Identities of all members of the Judicial Committee formed for Hernandez on July 27, 2006. All documents, reports, minutes generated by the Judicial Committee formed for Hernandez at least 5 days prior to the following due date, April 23, 2021 at 9 a.m. Your failure to respond to the subpoena or to comply with court rules may subject you to punishment for contempt of court. Let's see, and then this other one is the order. Defendant present, counsel present, court have jurisdiction. The case is set for hearing, motion limine hearing on May 6, 2021 at 9 a.m. So that's when the case is set for hearing. Now I got an email from the person, our friend who has been sending us the documents, and like I said, she has a legal background. For your information, attached are copies of the documents filed in the subject case on Wednesday and today. Following is just a brief summary of the updates in this case. Attached is a subpoena sent to the custodian of records, and I just mentioned that, requesting additional documents and other information, and a motion filed by the state attorney on Wednesday requesting a status on this subpoena on the next court date of April 23rd. It is interesting that the state's attorney is requesting any and all instructional material from either the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses or any other governing body over Kingdom Hall, Crystal Lake, relative to the procedures in handling of child abuse or sexual abuse matters. A copy of the January 1st, 1997 Watchtower, which they were sent, wink wink. Any documents, reports, minutes generated by the Judicial Committee in the Hernandez-Pedraza matter, and the identities of all members of the Judicial Committee and any persons that Pinkava spoke with relative to the handling of this case. Also attached is an order setting a date for hearing on the defendant's motion in limine of May 6 and requiring the state's attorney to file their reply to the defendant's motion in limine by April 9th and requiring the defendants to file their response to the defendant's motion in limine by April 16th. An order was also entered on Wednesday permitting one still photographer to be in the courtroom. Okay, also attached is the latest defendant's motion in limine 3, 4, 5, and 6, in which the defendant's attorney stated that there were only 2 separate meetings relative to the subject of child sex abuse case, one with the offender, Hernandez, and the other with Mrs. Hernandez, which may be the victim's mother. When you really think about this statement that there were only 2 meetings back in 2006, it makes you wonder how no one either knew about the continuing and apparently worsening, as stated previously by the state attorney, child sex abuse, or that no one apparently made any of the elders in the congregation or any other JWs aware that this child sex abuse was continuing for 13 years. How can anyone keep such information to themselves and sleep at night, or even look at themselves in the mirror? Now, when I replied back to her, I made the statement. I said, how can elders walk into the Kingdom Hall and smile and be all friendly and then get on that platform and talk about Jehovah's love and justice, knowing that there's a child in that audience that is being abused and that you're hiding it? How can they even look at themselves in the mirror? Going on. A motion in limine is a motion typically presented toward the beginning of the trial process where a party requests that the court enter an order limiting or preventing certain evidence from being presented at the trial. And that's what all these limine documents are. In this case, the defendant is requesting that he not be compelled to testify relative to what was said during his meeting with Mrs. Hernandez or during his meeting with the offender on the basis that he was providing spiritual guidance to the member of the congregation. And you see how Watchtower teaches these elders how to get their butt out of trouble? All this is about is covering their asses. Yeah, and like I mentioned, again claiming clergy penitent privilege relative to such disclosure, and that this confessional was exempt from mandated reporting pursuant to the Abused and Neglected Child Reporting Act 325 ILCS 5-4. The previous motion in limine 1 and 2 entered by the defense in this case stated that Mr. Pinkava was told by a New York lawyer, a licensed attorney, that he had no legal obligations to disclose information to the local authorities about the Hernandez-Pedraza matter and to require the New York lawyer to testify in the Pinkava case via Zoom, but limiting the scope of that testimony to the discussion of what, if any, mandatory requirements Mr. Pinkava needed to follow relative to this matter. We will continue to follow the pleadings filed in this case. Thank you, sweetie. And there's 5 documents, and I will be putting those on our website with the link down below. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I just want to mention, going back to the clergy lady distinction, and Watchtower claims there is no distinction, like I read in this Watchtower article. So if there is no clergy lady distinction, then why aren't the rank and file Jehovah's Witness members allowed to even see the Elder's Manual, where it has these directions on how to handle child abuse? Why aren't they allowed to see the Elder's Letter that explain and give instructions about these child abuse cases and how to handle them? So, in my humble opinion, Watchtower has been lying to the rank and file again all these years. When they tell you there is no clergy lady distinction, there is no clergy class, they are lying. They use this in court, and they use it to hold the members in control and indoctrinated. And they have the playbook to do it, the corporate playbook to do this. And the rank and file aren't even allowed, to look at this. So it's sad. It really is. I also want to mention, thank you everyone for your wonderful emails and comments under Mike's latest video, where he was talking about, wouldn't the food of the memorial be considered, food at the proper time, but yet Jehovah's Witnesses are denied that. Thank you everyone for your comments underneath there. There was one thing he wanted me to mention that someone said about the hate speech that Watchtower just got busted in a court case. They lost the appeal in Norway, I believe it was. And now that's real news. Yes, that is good news. We had covered it in, previously. And the reason, first of all, I just haven't had time to do a video because, like I said, I'm working behind the scenes on this. But the thing is this is what Watchtower has been doing all along. Jehovah hates apostates. So we must hate what Jehovah hates. And Anthony Morris himself said it.
But the wicked will perish, the enemies of Jehovah will vanish like glorious pastures, they will vanish like smoke. So, since they're Jehovah's enemies and Jehovah's our best friend, that means they're our enemies. How we look forward to these enemies of Jehovah, our enemies, vanishing like smoke. So while we eagerly await Jehovah's bringing his enemies to the end, now this point, what the fire did not consume, the maggots would. Now, I don't know if you know much about maggots, but you see a whole bunch of them. It's just not a pleasant sight. But what a fitting picture of the final end of all of God's enemies. Sobering, yet something we look forward to. However, the apostates and the enemies of Jehovah would say, well, that's gruesome, that's despicable. You teach your people these things? No, God teaches his people these things. This is what he's foretelling. And frankly, for friends of Jehovah God, how reassuring that they're finally going to be gone. All these despicable enemies that have just reproached Jehovah's name, destroyed, never, ever to live again. Now, it's not that we rejoice in someone's death, but when it comes to God's enemies, finally, they're out of the way, especially these despicable apostates who at one point had dedicated their life to God, and then they joined forces with Satan, the devil, the chief apostate of all time. So, in conclusion, let's go back to that opening psalm that we looked at here, just to help this verse stay in your mind, we hope. Verse 20, just to emphasize this, but the wicked will perish, the enemies of Jehovah will vanish like glorious pastures, particularly they will vanish like smoke. So I thought this would be a nice memory aid. This verse stay in the mind. Here's what Jehovah's promising. As Jehovah's enemies, they're going to vanish like smoke.
You see in there, we must hate Jehovah's enemies. So they view those of us who have left and who are speaking out as apostates. You must hate apostates because Jehovah hates them and they're going to disappear like smoke. Well, that right there is proof of hate speech. So, yes, this is great that they lost the court case, but they've been doing this for decades. This hate speech has been going on. Just go to the Watchtower Library and just put in apostates, and you will see hundreds and hundreds of articles where they talk about hate. Hate apostates, hate what Jehovah hates. We must hate Jehovah's enemies. And good thing, they're going to disappear like smoke. See? This is just evidence that they've been doing this for decades. So, thank you everybody so much for everything, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Bye.